All right, welcome to a little late here. CAA Today, Season 6, Week 2, recapping the end of this first half of out of conference play, previewing some Week 3. With me today, I've got the coach of Illinois State of the Missouri Valley Conference. Kirby, you want to say hi for the crew watching?
Hey everyone, how's it going? Good to be on.
Glad to have you here. Kirby came in clutch. We were kind of in a pickle here because I recorded this real late and during the middle of a Sunday night football game. But let's get right into it with our week 2 review. We've got Delaware taking on Tennessee Tech. This game was the game of the week going into double overtime. Tied 14-14 at half and tied 28-28 at the end of regulation. Both teams scored a touchdown in the first overtime period. Delaware able to force Tennessee Tech to miss and then getting that field goal to win the game. The final score was 38-35. Next up, the rivalry game, Delaware State and Elon. And Elon took control early, 13-0 at the end of the first quarter. Never looked back. The final score was 47-33. Next up, we've got Duquesne taking on Lehigh. And Duquesne, Val has really came into her own this season. She took control early, 21-0 at the end of the first. It was 35-6 at the end of the second. And from then on, it was 38-9 was the final score for Val there as she starts 2-0. James Madison at Indiana State, my game, and it was not a good one. Unable to get anything going on offense, and Shake just absolutely blew Kenner out there on the defensive side of things. Shake scored almost 2 touchdowns every quarter. The final score was 41-20, but the game was way over. The game was way over after about the first quarter, or first quarter and a half, I should say. I missed a PAT, and then he returned the ensuing kick for a touchdown or something crazy like that to end the quarter or to end the half, and then from then on out, it was just an absolute drubbing by Shake. We got Richmond versus Stetson in Vietnam. Richmond won at 30-0, I believe, because of a delay of game. Let me check that one out real quick here. Yeah, it is. It is a delay of game there for Stetson. Delay of gaming out of the game. 30-0 for Richmond in that one. Next up, we've got Robert Morris taking on Hampton. Final score 18-10. This game did hit the deadline. Robert Morris was ahead of the time, and that is where the game was called. Towson taking on UT Martin. Both of these teams looking to bounce back after tough seasons last year. UT Martin started hot last season, kind of fell off towards the end. I think they snuck into the playoffs or the NIT. Towson obviously not a great last season, but Towson has started off hot here, 2-0 after this game, 55-26. I mean, great showing from Mr. D. You can tell he's focused on the season, and he wants big things from this Towson Tiger squad. Next up, we've got Nova taking on Brown, and this one, Brown is just cementing his spot as one of the top teams in the Ivy, beating a very, very good Villanova team. Villanova drops to 0-2 after a 34-31 loss. And this game, it was really bad. Edge at the end called I believe, a punt or a run when he should have punted and wasted more time. And so yeah, it was 4th and 16 on the Villanova 27 with 4 seconds left. And instead of punting it, Edge decided to go for it to try and run at the clock. But Brown had called a timeout, so the play only took 2 seconds, and then the clock stopped on the turnover of downs. And then, so it was what, a 47-yarder, I believe, 49-yarder, 44-yarder for the win. So yeah, just poor play calling from Edge there at the end that blew him the game. Just unfortunate. William & Mary taking on Eastern Illinois. And this one, Eastern Illinois, was 0-0 at the end of the first half. So just a defensive showing from both teams. We know Matt's very good at defense. And so Eastern Illinois scored 10 in the third, 7 in the fourth. William & Mary only with a touchdown in the fourth. Final score 17-7. Next up, Youngstown State taking on New Hampshire. And New Hampshire squeaking out of this one. Youngstown State put up a great fight. That coach, Hugo Slothia at Youngstown State, making himself known there, 41-37. But New Hampshire obviously coming out with a win. They're a very good team, and they've gone 2-0 against CAA teams in the first 2 weeks. Next up, VMI taking on Southeastern Louisiana, and VMI got absolutely downed in this one. Final score was 28-7. And then finally, we got Morgan State taking on Jacksonville State. And this one also, I believe, hit the deadline. And Morgan State was able to escape with a 7-3 win. just one touchdown in that game. And so, yeah, that recaps week two. Do a quick count here, see how the CAA did. I believe we were 6-6, if I'm not mistaken. I'm gonna quick count here. So we got Morgan State, Robert Morris winning, VMI losing, James Madison losing, Richmond winning, Towson winning, William Mary losing, Delaware winning, Delaware State losing, Duquesne winning. Yes, we were 6-6. Uh, so I mean, not as good as 9-3 week one, but we'll take it there. And we'll move on to week two contender and pretender. And for me, my contender is Towson beating a very good UT Martin team. I mean, Mr. D has just turned it on this season, and it's reminiscent of when he first joined the league way back in season four. And he just absolutely took that Towson team to the house. They were challenging for the CA North after being like 1-5 or like 2-5, and so that was kind of crazy. My pretender was UAPB. I mean, they started off; they were a good team last year. Arkansas Pine Bluff were. Now they're like 1-1, and just a tough loss this week for them. And so, yeah, they were my contender there, or sorry, they were my pretender.
All right, so my contender for post week two is Western Carolina, a school out of the CFC. They have racked up two straight wins over MVC schools, which hurts me to say as an MVC coach. They beat Butler in week two by a score of 45-41, and they beat last a playoff team from last year, Drake, by a score of 28-14. And then they also had an in-conference game this week that finished with a crazy score of 50-6. So I can see them possibly challenging Davidson for the CFC North Division title. I think that game, whenever that happens, is going to be very interesting. So don't. I think they're going to be a very strong contender come mid season. As for my pretender, again, this hurts me to say as an MVC coach, I'm going with Northern Iowa. They've had a coaching downgrade after this past offseason with the great Chase retiring. They've gone with Jakester to lead them to glory this season, but they've started out 0-2, including a loss to Presbyterian, who is coached by F-Man, who doesn't really have a stellar FFCS record. And I don't think their schedule gets any easier in this chock full of VC. So look for them to finish probably sub 500 given their current performances so far.
Right, and it pains me to say it because Jakester is great, and thank you for your service, Jakester. But yeah, just not the best run of things right now. They're 0-2, and that Presbyterian loss just put the nail in the coffin. And losing to F Man in this league is kind of like a death wish. It's like going to the MLS after having a successful career in Europe. Uh, it's rough. So we'll move on to the week three preview. Obviously, some of these games are probably done, but we're gonna act like they haven't happened at all. And first up is Youngstown State taking on Morgan State, and I'm taking Yugoslavia. Yugoslavia proved himself against a very good defensive coach in New Hampshire, put up 37, even though they did lose the game. That's a great showing, especially against New Hampshire. So I'm taking Youngstown State in a blowout. I'm thinking 35-10.
I'm gonna have to counter that and go with Morgan State because I currently have Morgan State ranked 14th going into this week. They've had some good wins so far, and I think this Youngstown State game is gonna really show us who they are as a team, and I think it'll go a long way towards determining this division race in the Colonial North.
That's a good point to make. Youngstown State is, or sorry, Morgan State is 2-0, and so that's a very, very strong point to make. Two good wins for them. Next up, we got VMI taking on James Madison. This is a battle of some of the OGs of the CAA. I believe we're the two longest tenured coaches here. And so VMI obviously won the season three crown, but hasn't been able to replicate that success and just kind of been on a downfall. But they always seem to get a win against me. And I think this year I'm going to turn it around. I'm focused. Got a defensive coordinator with me, and so I'm going to pick myself in a close one. I'm thinking it's going to be somewhere around like 28-24 ish, somewhere in that range.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree purely because I want to be invited back to the show. So I'll pick James Madison in probably a 7 to 10 point game. I think they can rebound after losing to Indiana State last week, and I think they've got a decent chance at the Colonial South division title.
Especially after Zand left. Yeah, that South title is wide open for the taking. And so these divisional games are super important for these coaches in the South. And yeah, I mean, hey, you're invited on either way. I really appreciate you coming out. I don't think I've said that enough. So
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely, no
hey,
problem.
yeah, you can tell me I suck. I'd be okay with it, dude. Season 3, I was 2-10, so I've
Wow,
dealt with
I didn't know that.
yeah, it's been rough, but hey, improvement is all that matters.
Absolutely.
Next up, yeah, next up we've got William and Mary in Richmond, another CAA South battle. I'm gonna take the tenured FBS coach who's playing in the FCS right now, in Matt 17 to win this one. Richmond's got a new coach and they won 30-0. But I do remind you that 16 of those points were because of delay of games, and so I'm not going to take that 30-0 win as very convincing for me. And I think William and Mary would just pull this one out. It might be tight, but I think just William and Mary would just eventually grind Richmond down to the point where they can't get anything going on offense. So I'm going to stay somewhere around like 17-21 ish. I think this one would be close, but I think William and Mary just has that edge, and the score is a lot closer than the game looks.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree again here. I think the loss of Zand from Richmond is just too much to overcome, especially against a coach like Matt 17. So I'm gonna take William and Mary as well, and probably the same margin as what you were suggesting, Dor.
That's fair. Next up, we got the Route 1 rivalry. Big one here. Delaware State taking on Delaware. And for me, it's just Delaware. Was up is a great coach. I'm just gonna back him there. I mean, we're super glad to have him in the CAA, and his defensive work, especially against this Delaware State offense, that'll be the matchup to watch because we know Delaware State loves their air raid. They love to throw the ball, and they'll go for 60 points, but then they'll give up 70. So it's just which Delaware State do we see today? Do we see the one that is a shootout, like a 50-50 shootout team? Or do they get their offense going enough to overpower Delaware? But I'm picking Delaware, not Delaware State. I'm picking Was Up to win this one, and I think it'll be somewhere like 42-32.
Yeah, I think this one's gonna be one of the games to watch, even if it's not, featured for game day. I think both of these coaches have had, pretty reasonable records as head coaches. Of course, Wazup has a quarterfinal appearance from a couple seasons ago when he was at Montana, and DSU Matt is perpetually 500. So this should be a good game. I can't say that you should count DSU Matt out, especially with his Vinny esque tactics of always going for onside kicks. So if he can convert a few of those down the stretch, then I think Delaware State stands a chance here.
That's a great point. They they play risky, and sometimes it pays off, sometimes it doesn't. Next game we got is Duquesne and Robert Morris. These two teams were the bottom feeders of the CAA last year. Duquesne starting off 2-0, and they look strong. They look very strong. Robert Morris, Howie having a little bit of struggle getting this season started. So I'm picking the hot team here. I'm picking Duquesne, 2-0, and I'm just going to keep riding that wave. Duquesne is my winner here, and I think they win by a score. I think they win by like 2 or 3 touchdowns. So I'll say something like 42-21, maybe 35-14 ish, somewhere around that range.
Yeah, I'd have to concur. Duquesne's looking very good considering their record in past seasons. So I can agree with you that we'll just ride this streak until they lose.
Right, the Duquesne train is rolling and rolling steady. That rhymed. I'm very proud of that one. Final game here. This is our game of the week. Villanova and Towson. This one purely because of the coaching implications this one has. I mean, Villanova, CA North winners last year. Towson looking for a bounce back year, and they're on a hot streak as well. They're 2-0 to start the year, and Villanova is 0-2, and it's eerily similar to the situation we were in last year, with Villanova starting off 0-2. And last year, Villanova actually went 0-3. And so, purely because of the past, I'm going to pick Towson to win this one. I know the records and the coaching records don't look that good, look in Mr. D's favor, but purely because of history, I'm taking Towson in this one. I think they'll win something like, I don't know. I can't really predict a score for them because I know they like playing defense, but then the offense will go. But I'll say somewhere like 21-35 again. A two touchdown victory for Towson. Villanova slides to 0-3 is the most important part of that one.
Yeah, I think even with Mr. D's past history, recent history, I think that Villanova's early season form trumps that, and that Villanova will fall to 0-3, and will probably have to win out the rest of the way in conference play to win the Colonial North title again, especially with having to face Youngstown State and Morgan State, as well as Duquesne, who's having a very good year so far. So this is a crucial matchup for both sides, and it'll probably be a good one.
Right, absolutely. Huge matchup that will have playoff implications this early on to the season. So it's crazy to think about how a week three game could really affect the rest of conference play. But that's how the way it's scheduled, and that's why it's pretty sick to see that happen. And so, yeah, I mean, we'll move on to our listener questions. If I could get the slide to change, there we go. First one here is best 0-2 team. And for me, the decision is easy here. It's Judge from Kennesaw State. Judge is a perpetual powerhouse of coaching. Made the playoffs, I believe, 3 straight seasons now. And his first 2 games were Davidson and Penn, which are 2 top 10 coaches. And so 2 losses to those 2 coaches is honestly okay with me because I know they're 2 coaches that I wouldn't beat either way.
I'd have to agree with you on that one. They've played some top tier competition so far, and it's unfortunate that they haven't managed to come away with a win. But at the same time, you can't really think of another team that's 0-2 that's played as well as they have against the level of competition that they've faced.
Right. And next question is most disappointing team. And for me, that's going to be Valparaiso. I played them week one. They lost. It was a 7 point game. That game went to overtime. But this past week, they went and lost to Houston Baptist by 20. And unfortunately, that ruins my strength of schedule. And so if Valparaiso, Cooper, if you're listening, I love you. Please pick it up. And please don't fire me from what I do because I like doing it. I know he's probably going to end up listening to this. If Valparaiso could start winning some games, that'd be great for myself and for the league in general.
I've gone in a similar vein as you, picking another MVC team. I've chosen Drake. They were a playoff team last year, I believe, got as far as the quarterfinals. I think they were a top 8 seed, and they've come out of the gates really slow this season. They lost 28-14 to Western Carolina in week 1, which, obviously Western Carolina is 3-0 right now, so pretty good loss. And then they followed that up with a 17-7 loss to new FCS members, UTRGV. So, they've come out slow, and then this week they're down 14 to nothing to Northern Iowa in the first quarter. So not looking like a great season for them so far. So I think they're probably my disappointment so far.
Right, and that phrase, I like that you said it, the new FCS team, because I kind of wanted to touch on that. You see, it because this isn't like a game. It's not the levels. Sorry, the divisions don't matter. So these new teams, I mean, it's just a game of guessing numbers if we're being honest. And so it's crazy to think that, I mean, a new team such as like St. Francis that we added this offseason or UTRGV, like it's crazy to think that those 2 teams could make immediate implications, whether it's in conference play, maybe they make a run to the conference championship. It's crazy to think that, like, because you don't see it in real football, but I love how this works in that way, and I think that's something that's super important to keep an eye on as we go through the rest of the season. And as for
Uh,
Drake, I mean, I love Caps, great guy. I might end up going to the same college as him, so I won't talk too bad on him. But yeah, he does need to pick it up.
Yeah, and if I could just add a little something more to that, I know you mentioned the new FCS teams that forced a little bit of realignment as well. Um, St. Thomas has already had an interesting season so far as the newest member of the MVC. So their first game against Cornell, they was a dog out. They dogged out with their new coach, and they lost by a score of 30-12. Then that same coach, I believe, also dogged out in the first game, but then they managed to, in once that game was restarted, they won by a score of 2-0, which is probably as rare of a score as you can get, even in a number based guessing game. And then in week 3, with their FBS substitute, they are down 40-3, and I believe probably going to dog out again. So I think St. Thomas is cursed, and we should probably just send him back to Division Three.
Yeah, wow, I did not even notice that 0-2 score. That is insane to me. I mean, I totally glossed over that. And against Campbell too. I mean, Campbell's obviously not the same they were before, but that's still a good win. I mean, Campbell's got some name to him. And so yeah. Anything else you want to add here before we close this show off for a little bit?
Yeah, I think Einstein actually stepped in for Campbell on that one, so he was part of FCFB history again. In I think it was the first 2-0 score. So, and I know who is their head coach, Justin Average, before this season. So
Yeah, yeah. Camel,
yeah,
Congressional Camel, they call him Joshua FSPN. He's got many nomers.
right. So he's gone after this season. So that was a probably a surprising loss for them up down in Campbell.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to end it. I mean, talking about some historic stuff happening in FCFB. I want to thank Kirby for coming on today. A nice little 22-minute episode for you here, a week into week 3. Thank you guys for listening, as well as if you are watching on YouTube, what are you doing with your life? That'll be it for this week. Peace out and good.